Genghis Khan's personal life. Genghis Khan had a tragic childhood. He was born with a clot of blood in his hand, a Mongolian sign of being a warrior, in 1166. Born to the tribal leader of a small but influential group of Mongolians, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe when Genghis was young. The rest of the tribe abandoned Genghis, his mother, and brothers. Genghis and his brothers cared for their mother for years. Unfortunately, Genghis's half-brother was killed by Genghis himself. It all started when Genghis and his younger brother caught a huge fish, and the family was always starving, so they were delighted. But his older brothers ate it for themselves. Genghis was infuriated and soon killed his half-brother, but strangely left the other brother relatively unharmed. As Genghis aged, his personality brought back the subjects of his tribe who had abandoned him and his mother. A rival tribe leader soon became afraid of his power. Soon he had him kidnapped and had him put in a kantah, a device that binds the wrist and neck. But during a feast, Genghis knocked out his guards, who were drunk and cunningly escaped. After being crowned Khan, Genghis Khan started building an army of death machines. He soon made a plan to attack the Zhai dynasty to the west of Mongolia. Genghis knew the young leader of the Jin dynasty would never come to the aid of their neighbors, so as believed, when the Zhai called for help in 1209, the Jin dynasty ignored them. And then in that same year, Zhai fell to Mongolia. In 1215, Genghis took half of the Jin dynasty, 6 years after Zhai fell. Mr. Burks, who exactly was Genghis Khan?
Genghis Khan was one of the greatest conquerors of all time. He conquered the most populated continent on the face of the earth and stood ready to conquer all of Europe.
What do you think was Genghis Khan's greatest achievement, Mr. Burks?
Good question. It's hard to say because he achieved so much in one lifetime. He subdued Asia, created a Mongolian script, and utilized tribes that had been at conflict for generations. I'd have to say that just the ability to utilize and unite so many different cultures is what's amazing.
How exactly did Genghis Khan wage war, Mr. Burks?
His battle style was unique and revolutionary. It relied on the discipline and training of every single soldier. Each man had to care for 5 horses and maintain his own weapons and equipment. They fought using light, highly maneuverable cavalry, whose primary weapon was the bow, not the sword. They would rain down arrows on an enemy formation, and then when the formation broke, they would finish it off using heavy cavalry with lances. They also perfected the art of ambush, often using feigned retreats to lure an enemy into a trap. One such retreat lasted for 9 days before conditions were right to spring the trap.
How do you think our life was changed by Genghis Khan's actions?
I'm not sure that can be measured. When he conquered the area of the Silk Road, trade between Asia and Europe flourished because it was less hazardous. He also insisted that his administrators were assigned by ability, not patronage. The largest empire the world has ever known was ruled over by trained civil servants. The empire also permitted free religious practice for those who submitted to Mongol civil order. Culture and the arts began to move between Europe and Asia for the first time.
For our last question, Mr. Burks, what would you ask Genghis Khan if you could ask him one thing?
On his deathbed, he's reported to have said that he had failed to complete his divine mission. I'd like to ask him what he thought that mission might have been.
Thank you, Mr. Burks, for your input on this small documentary. Timeline of Genghis Khan's life. In 1209, Genghis Khan attacked the Zhai dynasty. It fell in the exact same year to Mongolia. In 1212, Genghis Khan conquered half of the Jin dynasty. In 1215, the rest of the Jin dynasty fell to Genghis Khan. In 1218, he conquers the Nashong Empire. Also in 1218, Genghis Khan attacked Karakitan because the king unfairly executed Mongolian traders and politicians. In 1222, Karakitan falls to Genghis. In 1227, Genghis Khan dies. In 1962, Genghis Khan Monument is created in honor of Genghis Khan in Mongolia. Genghis Khan's army used many weaponry. His army was mostly made up of cavalry. Most of the cavalry was light cavalry. His light cavalry used light and very quick weaponry. Most of the time they used standard Mongolian bows, but their arrows were not so standard. Most arrows had a device that bent the wind to make a massive screaming noise that scared the enemy as it came down. Heavy cavalry tend to use a wide variety of lances and long axes that they used while they rode in to kill the enemy. Infantry was rarely used and only used when attacking forts or navigating terrain horses could not. Genghis Khan has been known as many things to historians, people, and anything else. But three main things that he was his whole life. Genghis Khan was a conqueror, a genius, and a father. His true success was in how he rose to power, with nothing but a humble family and himself. He was not a vicious murderer of thousands, as many historians believe he was. But he was the father of all of Mongolia. Genghis Khan was a turning point in history because our lives would be very different if he had not done what he did. The America we know today would probably not be America. It'd be some weird country, or maybe even New Rome, because New Rome was in power during Genghis Khan's conquering, and if he hadn't pushed the Germanic cells into the Mediterranean area, Rome would have continued to grow and probably take all of Europe, which would have hindered the ability to explore the New World. And when Genghis Khan brought a new battle tactic into the world that has changed the way people fight today. And last, his conquering somewhat brought the end of the ancient era. He brought the world into the medieval era.